Happy Easter. It used to be that one of the nice things about writing books was that people who read them and loved them learned to know the author through their words. You didn't have to mess around with image. There was brand to think about, but not so much image. If you discovered a new gray hair or you discovered some wrinkles behind your eyes, a wrinkle or two in the mirror, the news media was not going to take your image and plaster it all over the tabloids and with all the devastation of it all. So things have kind of changed over the years as authors are more likely to have web pages, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram profiles. But once upon a time, if you wrote books, you could become well known and still kind of hide from the world a little bit. I never reached the same celebrity status as most well-known novelists, and so I never really thought twice about image. But there was at least one time that it all kind of came home to me. I went to our local library and someone introduced me to a girl who stood in the atrium just outside of our entrance, outside the entrance of the library. Her eyes grew really round and her mouth swung open and she said, "You're Tamara Shoemaker. I love your books." And then she proceeded to tell me all about these characters I had made up. And how, she interacted with them and how she loved them and how she wanted to be an author. And overall, it left me feeling really shy and unworthy and thankful that I would never be on screen, in an on-screen image role besides, YouTube or whatever. So this girl knew my name, and that name changed the situation from stranger to friend. She knew me through my words. As soon as she heard my name, she recognized me. I thought about that today for my scripture reading this morning. Early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb and she saw that the stone had been removed from the entrance. It's from John 21. The other Gospels have variations on this, but they all agree among the first ones to discover the empty tomb was Mary Magdalene. Now, I have never visited a graveyard and found a cracked open empty vault, and I've especially never had this happen to the grave of a person that I've loved. They were still alive. So I can only imagine the absolute numbness that must have blanketed her mind, the minds of all the women as they came to see the tomb and as they stared at the two angels who were sitting at the head and the foot of the place where Jesus's body had been previously laid. Because these women had witnessed the burial. Luke 23:55 says, "The women who had come with Jesus from Galilee followed Joseph of Arimathea and saw the tomb and how his body was laid in it. They knew that he had been there." So one of the angels speaks up. "Why do you look for the living among the dead?" Why do you look for the living among the dead? But he died. I saw it. I was there. I was a witness. He is not here. He is risen, which are arguably 7 of the most powerful words in the entire scripture. And there's a lot of powerful words in the entire scripture, but those are 7 powerful words. Have you ever been so shocked that you can't feel your lips or you can't feel the ends of your fingers? I have. I've been there. Mary was there. Mary was shocked, I'm sure, speechless, telling herself that she must have dreamed it, telling herself that it couldn't be true, and yet, so she turns and runs back to the city, to the place to Jerusalem, to where Peter and John and the other disciples are staying, and she says, "He's gone! The tomb is empty!" She cries. I've said it before, and I will keep on saying it. Peter is my absolute favorite. John's pretty cool too, but Peter is, I just love him. So yesterday I had to laugh at an exchange I saw on Facebook where one of my friends kind of dished a little bit on slow Peter because he couldn't keep up with Speedy John. And one of her friends kind of came back at it with a little snub of her own. She says, "Well, Peter ran into the tomb, and what did John do? He just leaned over and looked in." But Peter was the intrepid one. He went right in there. He wanted to see for himself, what's going on? Where is the body? So the disciples witnessed the empty tomb for themselves. They see the slack grave clothes. They're neatly folded. The burial cloth that has been around Jesus' head separates it from the strips of the cloth that were around his body. And then they go back to the city, to the places where they've been staying. And maybe they were like me. Maybe they just needed to process this before they could do anything else. I mean, surely their minds were ringing with questions like, how? How did this happen? John 28 says, John saw and believed. John 29 says, but they still did not understand from Scripture that Jesus had to rise from the dead. Mary Magdalene, meanwhile, she stays at the graveyard and she's weeping. She doesn't understand yet either. There's an empty grave, there's no Jesus. The same refrain in John and Peter's mind is surely echoing through her mind. How? How? What does it mean he's risen? Surely this is like one of those parables that Jesus often told. Maybe there has to be a symbolic meaning. Maybe they've taken him out of the grave and taken him somewhere different, and that's what they mean by he's risen. In the early morning light, a man approaches Mary, and she sees him through her tears. At this hour, so early, before most people are awake, he had to be the gardener, right? She's obviously in distress. Her voice was probably breaking a little. And he says, "Woman, why are you crying? Who is it that you're looking for?" And she says, "Now, when I cry, I ugly cry. My words are garbled. I'm sniffing. I'm hiccuping. My voice goes up and down and up and down and all over the place." And if Mary was anything like that, it's a wonder that the man could understand her at all. "Sir," she says, "if you have carried him away, tell me where you've put him, and I'll go get him." And Jesus says to her, "Mary, Mary." Recognition floods her at the sound of her name, spoken from his mouth. "I see you. I know you. Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. On the cross and through the power of my resurrection from the dead, I have summoned you by your name. You are mine." Mary. From stranger to friend. Recognition. He sees her. She recognizes him. She belongs to him. Because of what he did, she is no longer her own. She is bought at a price. His. Tamara, or insert your name there. I've called you by your name. You're mine. You saw what I did on the cross. You witnessed it. Now witness this. I am risen. Why do you look for the living among the dead? He's not here. Not at the grave. He's not in the tomb. He's not trapped beneath the ground. He's not decaying. He's not turning into dust. He's risen. Risen. He's risen. Was it a morning like this when Peter and John ran from Jerusalem? It is finished. The battle is over. It is finished. There'll be no more war. It is finished. The end of the conflict. It is finished, and Jesus is Lord. Risen, 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 risen. There's a tempo to it. The urgency of life. Death is defeated. He is risen. He is risen. I hear that same tempo this morning. When I was writing this, I heard that same tempo this morning as dawn was slowly creeping over the horizon. We have a mountain range east of our house, and I could see the difference between the mountain range and the sky about the time that I published the blog. Day was dawning, light was coming. Darkness is defeated. The sun is alive. He's alive. He's risen. He's risen indeed. Crown him with many crowns. He is King of all kings, Lord of all lords. His reign is eternal. I know that my Redeemer lives, and that in the end he will stand upon the earth. And after my skin has been destroyed, yet in my flesh, I will see God. I myself will see him with my own eyes. I and not another. How my heart yearns within me. That's from Job 19:25-27. Happy Easter. Happy Resurrection Sunday. Many blessings.